It's TIE Fighter Renegades, a Star Wars podcast.
It has been a little while, but I imagine folks at home can imagine why. We are living, the world is a very, very interesting place right now, but TIE Fighter Renegades is here for you, and that means you are getting none other than Dr. Brian Sovryn and, of course, Robin Freebeard. Welcome back to TIE Fighter Renegades, man.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah. So I guess, opening it up, very exciting thing that I've been working on while we've been away. And we only skipped one episode, but anyway, but while we've been away, is actually now there's a website you can go to, tiefighter.xyz. I love that .xyz, that domain name that came out. Boy, that was a few years ago. And in fact, Google were the first ones to jump on it, where their website, what was it? abc.xyz. It was for alphabet. And it kind of put that domain name on the map. Obviously, something like tiefighter.com. Good luck getting our hands on that one. But tiefighter.xyz was available. So I jumped on it. And what it will do is it'll actually take you to the YouTube page. And we've set up a new YouTube page for TIE Fighter Renegades so that people can just land there and enjoy the show there. And of course, it's still available in podcast format, and you can find links for the podcast feed for it at tiefighter.xyz. But it seems like, all things nerdy kind of find a home at YouTube. And so I thought that it was, Rob and I discussed it, and I thought it was about time that we landed there. But of course, still, it's in the podcast feed overall, along with my other shows, Sovereign Tech, and so on. So hope everybody goes to check that out. Feel free to subscribe to it, of course, and, get your little notifications on the bell that lets you know when a new episode comes out. And who knows what other fun stuff we'll do now that we have YouTube as a platform for the show, as long as YouTube doesn't kick us off of it, which I wouldn't be surprised, because this is about as uncensored a show, whether Star Wars, science fiction, anything, as you can get. And we certainly take no bribes from Disney, unless, I think I said this before, if they would let me make a Star Wars movie, man, I would make TIE Fighter Renegades. I apologize, Rob. I'd make TIE Fighter Renegades disappear from the internet so fast. They're like, all right, fine. I'll do it. As long as you don't bring in some asshat afterwards to recut my movie, I will recant everything I ever said.
Hey, everybody has a price.
Yeah. Like the $1 Million Man. Everybody's got a price. But that is a high price, baby. You would have to let me make a Star Wars movie, and I want final editing rights on that baby too. So we know that's never going to happen. So might as well say there is. But anyway. So that said, how about? Actually, I think it'd be fun to open this up with. We'll get into the comic book update, which I think is important to get into because, as usual, as I often say, there aren't many Star Wars shows that even bother to talk about the comics, unfortunately. And we always have. But before we get into that, let's do the temperature check, Rob. I mean, how are you feeling? Yeah. Do I have to ask now? Even how are you feeling about Star Wars, brother?
It's it hasn't been great. I gotta say. Feeling some franchise fatigue. In fact, up until, even maybe just within the last 24 hours, you might have been hearing me say something like, I don't know, fuck Star Wars.
You might not have been the only one, along with some other franchises where I'd basically say, fuck that, fuck that, and Picard, and oops. Anyway, yeah. So not feeling good about it, huh, Rob?
There is such thing as too much of a good thing, and there's definitely such a thing as too much of a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's just been, I don't know, a constant stream of shit lately.
Yeah. So, well, let me tell you the way how I'm feeling right now. Basically, I'm feeling my fandom for Star Wars. It's like a fireplace, and there's like it's out, like
Yeah.
and there's barely even smoke going. Okay, now like my grandfather would say, where there's smoke, there's salmon, but that's not relative to this because I don't know if there's any salmon here. No, but there's like little embers that are still kind of burning that
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
didn't think to put out,
That's
because they
fair.
weren't thorough. That's how I'm feeling, is that there's those
Yeah.
little embers, that are
Right.
still burning hot,
Right.
but they're so tiny.
So, and
Go ahead.
for our members of our audience that are perhaps close to our age, um, the context I would put it in is I haven't felt this low about Star Wars since back in the day when they started the New Jedi Order, and at the same time they were saying that they weren't going to make any more original trilogy video games.
Oh yeah, I remember that comment.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was about the lowest I had ever felt in Star Wars. And I'm pretty much there right now. I'm pretty close.
Yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, I think I don't feel like we're the only ones. I think there are a lot of people who are feeling that way. That doesn't mean there aren't good things happening. Of course,
yes, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, something that we're not going to get to in this episode, we'll get into the next episode, which we plan on coming out in pretty short order. Is Clone Wars season 7 has been running for about, are we 5 episodes deep now as of this recording?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Unfortunately for me, like the first 3 episodes I had already seen like years ago.
You saw it Celebration, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. They saw the anime, and they were all. I mean, like all the audio work was already done.
Right.
So it was. You pretty much got. They did end up adding. We'll talk about this later, but they did add a little bit of new stuff. But yeah, like even the Clone Wars, I wasn't getting, maximum enjoyment from, because it wasn't really new content for me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's been, it's Clone Wars. Like I think it's delivering on Clone Wars' level, what we would want from that.
And it looks good. They one thing I was worried about is that they were going to cut corners with the animation, and they haven't.
No, in fact, I almost feel like it looks a little better.
It does.
Yeah. So that's certainly a worthwhile thing that's out there. I think an interesting, I guess, to kind of to segue out of that, I think, because we will talk about Clone Wars. I mean, we're almost halfway through the season, I think. So we might just do a full season retrospective. We'll see how that goes. But something that we always make sure we talk about, but that we're often very critical of, is the comic book end of Star Wars. What Marvel's putting out there. Of course, it's all Disney, but they did, and we talked about this in the last episode. I mean, they did basically, they're doing a volume 3 for Darth Vader now. They're doing a volume 2 for the Star Wars ongoing series. They're doing another Afro series. They have Bounty Hunters out there right now, which we're not going to review that. But, go ahead.
And understand that like, in general, Brian and I like despise reboots.
Yeah.
And the comic book industry, this constant need to be pushing issue number 1s for sales.
Yeah, because that's what it is. It's a sales tactic.
Yeah. That's all bullshit.
Right. But this time around, I gotta say, it's a winning idea.
Yeah.
Because I mean, not that volume 2 of Vader was bad in any way. In fact, I thought it was very good. But the Star Wars ongoing was definitely feeling very long in the tooth, and there were payoffs coming, but they took way too long. It's just the formula they were running with for the bulk of that series was not working. And I think doing a refresh by going to another number 1, going to another volume, I think it's a winning idea because they are doing it right. Well, so now go ahead.
They've really, I mean, I'll just say it. They seems like they've really pulled their heads out of their asses, because
yes,
especially with the main comic, because I know you enjoyed some of the storylines in that, but for the most part, the majority of the main Star Wars comic just didn't feel like Star Wars to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even necessarily always bad. It just didn't feel like Star Wars. Whereas we're at like 4 issues deep into the main comic right now, and it feels like Star Wars.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
that is such a like it was like a foreign feeling at first. I was like going, yeah. It's like they took a cue from the Mandalorian almost. And I maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but it definitely it feels like they're actually paying attention to what they're doing now and actually caring about what Star Wars is.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment completely. So volume 2 of the Star Wars ongoing originally took place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And in fact, the series ended, as did many Star Wars series, comic series, and with Destination Hoth, right? They all kind of came together where they were going to end in the Empire Strikes Back, which I think is fine. But now we're between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And this is, for me, as an old EU fan, which I mean, I'm a fan of quite a bit of the new canon as well, but this is kind of holy ground where Shadows of the Empire sat, which is basically my favorite Star Wars novel, more or less, of all time. And so you got to, this is an area where I'm like, boy, if you fuck this up, like you're just going to keep digging yourself deeper. But I feel like, no, that hasn't been the case at all. They have really, even in just 4 issues, they have given us so much. And part of why I think it feels like Star Wars is because they're not holding Luke Skywalker back. He's not like the learning boy so much that we got between, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. No, now we have Luke Skywalker, who's faced Darth Vader, who is trained with Yoda, and he's not pulling any punches.
Right.
And he's acting like a fucking Jedi. And I'm like, well, this is nice. Like the Luke Skywalker we're getting now is the guy who you can see putting on the black uniform or the black clothes in pretty short order. And I'm looking forward to that. So there's that excitement that's in with it. Lando, and I've said this many times on this show specifically, as soon as Lando shows up in anything, the bar goes from, I mean, you can't see it in audio, but from here to here, it raises so high. He's one of the 2 characters, I think, Lando and the Emperor, and that's probably why they baked them both into Rise of Skywalker, or tried to, was because they know that there's just this feel. These are these extra characters that when they show up, there's just this panache, this charisma that's instantaneous. And so Lando, I think, go ahead.
The execution has to be authentic too. Whereas, like, I would say, in Rise of Skywalker, the execution really wasn't that authentic to the characters.
Right.
They felt like cameos for the sake of cameos, whereas Lando in the comics, he has a reason for being there, and he is being authentic. They're being authentic to his character.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, another thing we're getting in with this, and spoiler alerts, folks, the other thing we're getting is it looks like we are going to get the story of, hey, how the hell did Maz end up with Luke's old lightsaber, with Anakin's lightsaber?
Right.
And I think we're going to get that now because the movies aren't going to bother with it. JJ has no idea, not that he ever did, but and so we're going to get that. So that, I mean, that's a nice touch too. So much with, and Leia, I mean, I don't know, in issue 4 of Star Wars, when Leia, like all those people get frozen out of carbonite or get unfrozen out of carbonite. And Leia says, so who wants to join the rebellion? I thought that was pure badassery. And she's just holding, the stormtrooper rifle. And I was like, oh yeah, there you go.
And it was so perfect too, when they're later on the Millennium Falcon and those people from Cloud City who came to join the rebellion, and they come up to Lando and they're just like, you came back for us. And it's so perfect because it plays to his ego.
Yes.
And gets him into the rebellion just as much as these people joining from Cloud City are invested. And he didn't see himself as being the hero, I think, up until that moment.
Yeah, and now you see where he fits in with his leadership role. We don't just have to know about the maneuver at the Battle of Tanab, because a lot of people that join the rebellion from Cloud City, they totally recognize him as a leader, and they're in the rebellion now. So it makes sense that he's a general. I think it's very clever writing, and it Yeah, I've recently heard somebody call like this concept of Star Wars poetry, that Star Wars is poetry that has like a certain narrative flow. And I think this hits all the notes of Star Wars poetry in this comic. So I've been very impressed. Just 4 issues deep, and I've been very impressed. Probably haven't been this excited since Dark Horse did their last Star Wars ongoing run, which for 13 issues was very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, any other comments on the Star Wars ongoing?
No, like I said, it feels like the first time in a very long time that I've actually enjoyed it.
Yeah,
like just genuinely enjoyed it, and for the here again for the first time, I'm actually looking forward to the next issue. Whereas before with the ongoing comic, I was getting to a point where I didn't want to read it anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it felt like a chore. I totally agree.
Yeah.
It was too drawn out. There weren't enough great moments in each one, and each of these issues is loaded with moments. It's awesome. Yeah, so I agree with that. Now, Vader, the Vader comic, which we're in volume 3 now, I guess. We're 2 issues deep on that. I mean, spoiler alerts again, folks. We don't hold back on those. I have also been impressed with this series, and in fact, and this is not something I get to say often about Star Wars, I think this comic is fucking sexy, and sexy as hell. I knew inside of issue 1, because you get that last page, big glory shot of what looks like Padme alive, and Vader's looking at her, right? The instant they did that, I knew that, because of E.K. Johnston's book, Queen's Shadow, which we got the sequel, is it Queen's Peril? Is that the name of the sequel coming out this year,
yes.
2020? Okay. So in that, you find out, spoiler alerts, folks, but in that you find out that Sabe survived all the bullshit, and she was one of Padme's handmaidens. And so as soon as they showed her on the last page of Vader #1 for volume 3, instantly I was like, oh, that's Sabe. And then we get throughout issue 2. Like I said, I thought this was sexy, because even though it's not Padme, really just this, I don't know, like seeing someone that looks like Padme interacting with Vader, and the idea of those two going out and kicking ass, even though clearly Vader's tricking Sabe and so on. I don't know. I thought there was something really sexy about it. I mean, certainly it's on a power trip level, but and I'm a dark side fan, and it was pushing the right buttons for me as far as that goes. I really, really like that. What do you got, Rob?
Yeah, for me personally, when Vader comics are at its best is when they're kind of tugging at those loose ends and threads of Anakin Skywalker. And they're dealing with that tension of basically these two personalities within. Right.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like in the comics overall, which is where I think we've gotten the most Vader post Disney acquisition, do you feel like doesn't it feel, I feel like it. I feel like they've been pushing in a lot more that he's still Anakin.
Yes. But they're kind of, laying down that, this conflict has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
Because Luke ends up, saying, I sense the conflict within you in Return the Jedi. But, as the audience, we never really saw any of that at all in the original trilogy up until the very end.
Right. And, I got to think, and actually, I'm going to give a little bit of credit to Rise of Skywalker for this, as much as it pains me to do so, but a little bit of credit to it in that I feel like, and actually Last Jedi kind of did this too, because how does the Emperor not know? How does the Emperor not exactly feel the conflict like that Luke is talking about? Now we can understand why Luke could feel something that the Emperor can't, because arguably Luke would be more powerful in the Force, right? Because he's a Skywalker, and even in Episode 3, Palpatine makes it very clear that Anakin is more powerful than he is.
Yeah. But not only that, even in Return of the Jedi, Vader comes to Palpatine and says he's sensed Luke on, the Forest Moon of Endor. And Palpatine's like, well, that's funny. I didn't sense that at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good point. Yeah, because and he says like, "Are you sure you're feeling this correctly?" Yeah, I mean, he basically says something along those lines. But so Kylo Ren is able to hide his intent from, and so is Rey, from both Snoke and the Emperor, which of course they're kind of the same person, right? So this idea that things can be hidden, like these really deep emotions or plans going on, can be hidden from the Emperor. I mean, Disney's really kind of doubled down on that, and Rise of Skywalker, I think, really brought it into the movies even more and made it more blatant that this is something that is possible even beyond Vader. So, I got to give it credit there. In fact, there's a point I want to sidetrack on. That has to do with. All right, let's do it. I want to get your thoughts, any further thoughts on Vader, but I want to sidetrack on something quick about Rise of Skywalker. And that is when amazingly, I think this movie actually enhances one of what I consider to be the best moments in Return of the Jedi, which is when Luke Skywalker tosses his lightsaber away.
Mm-hmm.
Palpatine like goads him. And actually, I guess we should talk about this later when we're reviewing the novel and everything. But Palpatine goads Luke into striking him down, right? And if, according to the novel, if you do this in hate, then there's like this transference that occurs where like you basically collect like this God consciousness of Sith. This is actually the wrong place for me to be talking about this. We should have done it later, but but we're already going, so we're going. Okay. I guess I'll just leave it here with this is that there are things that actually, at least the novelization, if not the movie itself, has done a good job of actually enhancing some of the original trilogy, which I'm amazed by. And Disney has seemed to, it speaks to what you were saying, where we're picking up the loose ends of, things within Anakin's life and how they relate to him as Vader. And I think that's a really spot on assessment of what makes a Vader story work overall and what's made really, I think, all 3 volumes of Vader work. I mean, do you have any thoughts in the first, I mean, we're only 2 issues deep, but I mean, do you have any other thoughts on the 2 issues of Vader volume 3 so far?
No, not really. I mean, like I said, I really do feel that they're just kind of continuing to do what's really worked for them in the past. I don't know if they've gotten feedback from other people or fans or whatnot, but I do think that is probably at this point the most compelling aspect of Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even more something that we didn't mention in the Star Wars mainline comics is after the battle at Cloud City, Luke is kind of processing all this information about how Vader is his father and stuff, and he's trying to reach out to Ben Kenobi and Yoda through the Force, and they're not answering.
Right.
And there's this really cool sort of like parallel where he basically gets upset and he breaks the window on the ship behind him.
Yes.
And it parallels the same moment that we had earlier in, I think it was Vader Volume 1, where he finds out that Luke Skywalker is his son and that he was lied to about the Emperor, about Padme dying, and all this stuff. And he breaks the window in front of him in the Star Destroyer.
Right. Yeah, which is probably that one panel where you just see the crack of the window when Boba Fett basically gives Vader the info. That might be the single greatest panel in Marvel's Star Wars history.
I would not disagree with that one tiny bit.
Yeah,
I mean, thought that myself, and because I mean, just the pathos just rolls off the page.
Right. Yeah, and it's something that you don't need anything more than the Star Wars movies that George Lucas made to get that, but I don't think everybody thought about it. It's like, wait, Vader must have known somehow. And yeah, it's just a beautiful moment. It really is. So yeah, I think the Vader comic has consistently been the best thing that they've had going. I've never really felt like in any of the volumes that there has been where it's ever been like a roller coaster. Like Dr. Aphra's been good, but it's also been a bit of a roller coaster where, there's a few issues where it kind of not as exciting. But I think Vader's been consistently delivering.
Overall, I mean, I think there was some stuff in volume 2, and I can't think of it right now, but I do remember thinking at the time that, they weren't really doing their best.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the consistency on Vader has been very good, and the quality's been very high. So I mean, it's really not hard not to recommend this new volume or even of the previous 2 volumes if you haven't read them yet. Definitely worth picking up.
Yeah, I think that if you're wanting to get into Star Wars comics, the Vader volumes are absolutely where to start, because you're going to get the most of the Star Wars that I think you want and that you want to know. And there's a lot of, I mean, like the stuff with Momin and so on. I mean, there's just a lot of great things to walk away from the Vader comics.
And there are connections between Vader and some of the other comics that will, if you are interested in reading more, it could lead you into some of the other comics in the, that Marvel's putting out. So it really is. And it is, I agree with you. It's an excellent place to start if you haven't read any Star Wars comics yet or any Marvel Star Wars comics. Pick up the first Vader volume and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I mean, because that's also going to introduce you to Dr. Aphra, who is widely considered, I mean, out of the comic books anyway, or maybe out of the new canon overall, the best character to come out of it in Disney's tenure, for a lot of people. I mean, not everybody, but for a lot of people, I think they feel that way. So anyway, let's go on to our last bit of comic book reviewing, and that is the Rise of Kylo Ren series, issues 1 through 4. I mean, I'm just going to say it outright. These comic books were, I feel like they were heavy retconning and nay pointless. I mean, just
go
ahead.
They don't add anything. They start off by contradicting the movies, and then they go back and basically explain that away by making it seem like Kylo Ren is just a liar and you can't believe anything he says. Then then what's the point of having this character say anything at all, really?
Yeah, I mean, you really get no real, like, I mean, because one of the exciting things was learning more about Snoke, but just like is the sequel trilogy's MO, you really don't learn anything more about Snoke other than, in Rise of Skywalker, that he's a clone, or that he's a puppet.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, he's just got, Palpatine's hand up his ass.
Yeah. Guy's ventriloquist, goddammit.
I mean, they literally show that in the comic too, because they're showing Kylo or Snoke talking to Kylo Ren, but they're kind of cutting in scenes of what's obviously, the Emperor speaking through Snoke.
Yeah. So you get that. And I mean, I feel like the release of these 4 issues was clearly to keep you from getting spoiled on reveals in Rise of Skywalker. But even then, like, once just fucking get these comics out. And they drew it out way too long. And this speaks to something that I think is also true of the novelization, which we will talk about soon. But ultimately, I think the goal of these comics was to make Kylo actually look like less of a bad guy, because he's always reticent to kill his fellow Jedi. He's reticent to do what the Knights of Ren want him to do. We get really, I mean, the explanation of the Knights of Ren in it is bullshit. I think it's more just to try and make him appear more redeemable when you get to the ultimate act of Rise of Skywalker. That's
right. As opposed to any effort to try to make him a more compelling character at all, which they fall flat on their faces and don't accomplish in the least bit.
Yeah. So again, that speaks to what I think is just pure pointlessness to this series. I get it that they felt they needed to do it, and they probably felt pressure of like, okay, but we got to explore what this whole Knights of Ren thing means. I would have rather they just left it to mystery at that stage, because what they gave us was horseshit.
Right.
So okay, but anyway, yeah, I don't think I really have much else to add to that. Again, it
Yeah,
is
no.
just pointless.
So I mean, yeah, it's Vader and mainline Star Wars are a buy, and Kylo Ren is a skip.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We will get to reviewing Bounty Hunters as that series keeps going forward. But the odd man out here is, for the first time, we don't have, and I've enjoyed these overall, where we have not necessarily adaptations, but to use the colloquialism, we have you would have movie adaptations, comic book movie adaptations for every movie that Disney has done. They did it for Rogue One. They did it for Solo. They did it for Last Jedi. They did it for Force Awakens. I mean, they did it for everything. And you kind of get deleted scenes or alternate scenes of a type within these comic books. And I think they really do flesh out the movies even more. And I've really enjoyed these. And the odd thing is, we don't get one for Rise of Skywalker. But then this is next to Last Jedi. This is the movie where I absolutely want that, or actually, the Force Awakens one was just like a straight, that was like a straight adaptation. They didn't like add anything into that. I remember people were disappointed by it. But anyway, I mean, Rob, what do you think is behind them not doing a Rise of Skywalker comic?
I think there are a couple possibilities. One, it takes literally months and months to put these comics together before they come out.
Right.
Because, the artist has to draw all the panels and everything. And, there's just production issues. So, I mean, we know for a fact that they were working on Rise of Skywalker literally up until the minute they printed the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is to me, the most likely possibility is that they couldn't have anything ready in time. It may be that they're working on something right now. The other possibility is that I think it was Luke Ross who has been doing these adaptations in the past. And I like him as an artist, but apparently he got in some hot water a while ago for tracing some 3D models.
Oh, yes.
Like just complete bullshit of a thing to complain about. All these people, they get upset when you trace a starship, but when an artist has been tracing, still frames of characters' faces for literally years on end and they don't say a word, I call bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it may be that, that they've decided to either not use him anymore, or they did go to him again to illustrate the movie adaptation and ended up scrapping it.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I mean, like, part of what I think was the odd release schedule with Rise of Kylo Ren was that I think they were changing it as they went, all right, how do we want this to look? And that's also why I think the comic felt very disjointed, because it also wasn't like a good read either, that whole series. Yeah, I could believe that. I mean, there's a part of me that feels like, well, we never announced it, so let's just bury this thing as quickly as we can. I mean, because if I was Disney, I'd be wanting to get past this movie so quickly, because there's people who are talking about it favorably, but I don't meet a whole lot of people who aren't other Star Wars podcasters that are, I think, somewhat on the take with Disney, or their bread and butter is based around Star Wars being fucking great no matter what. That really likes the movie, Yeah,
so, and we know that is thing, because I mean, like, I've heard other Star Wars podcasters talk about how basically they're not on their take, but they've been offered before.
Right.
And in order to basically, get the inside scoop from Lucasfilm and get good treatment as, a whatever you want to call it, Star Wars influencer, you have to speak positively about everything.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And I think we can see some real world ramifications of some of this stuff, deserved or not. I mean, we could just say Harloff and then we can move on. So,
or just Collider in general.
Yeah, I mean, Jedi Council's over. I mean, that's been done.
Well, it's been done for me for a long time because I could smell the stink of Disney, wafting off everything they did, and I'm like, this is bullshit. And half these guys don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, but they pretend like they do.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, bringing it full circle, I do think that Disney and actually something we're not going to get into talking about in this episode that I do want to talk about in the future, which is Project Luminous or the High Republic. We know what it is now. I think they are trying to get out in front and get past the sequel trilogy as quickly as they can. I'm surprised.
And that might be a problem, that they're rushing forward, maybe not blindly, but, with wild abandon, trying to right the ship. And they might just, make it worse.
That is entirely possible. I mean, we're going to be getting this High Republic material come August. I definitely think they're gauging it to see how well does this sell, and thus should we make it a movie. We were supposed to get another movie announcement by now. Obviously, with COVID-19, that didn't happen. And I think Hollywood's definitely taking advantage of this situation to where they can kind of reset a lot of things.
Right. The whole franchise is a disarray. I mean, they put the brakes on the Obi-Wan series.
Yep.
As I understand it, the Cassian Andor series, it already started, didn't it? But I don't know whether or not they've already wrapped production on that yet.
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't even heard that they had started production yet.
Yeah, I think they'd started, or at least it was in pre-production. But obviously, with what's going on with COVID-19, that's kind of probably going to be up in the air. There's the whole Rian Johnson trilogy. That's still a thing, not a thing every other week.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what's going on with that.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, according to him, it's still on, but people are saying it isn't still on, and then somebody says it is still on. Just nobody can seem to make up their mind.
Yeah. Though they don't mind, and we're going to get to it later. They don't mind bringing out Mandalorian season 2 news. They have been dropping bombs, in my opinion, lately for that. But we'll talk about that a little later on. I mean, maybe it's both things. Why there isn't a Rise of Skywalker comic? It just they didn't have time to roll it out. I agree with you that it does take time, and maybe it's just they want to get past the sequel trilogy, and then get on to something else with Star Wars, which. Anyway, I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that's not a bad idea. There's a part of me that's like, wow, you guys have so much work to do,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm not precluding the possibility that they might eventually do an adaptation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still possible they could do it, and they just, one day they just drop it on us without any, kind of announcement or fanfare. That's, not outside the realm of possibility. So,
well, I'll tell you. Or go ahead.
No, that's all I have to say on it. It could happen. It might not. They might, like you said, you could be right. They might just move on and try to, forget about it.
I think the smartest money they could do right now is I would take, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes here. I would take the Duel of the Fates script. I would take Trevorrow's script, and I'd turn that into a comic book. Make sure it's under the Infinities label for Star Wars, and roll. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I would love that too, but they're going to fucking they want to memory hole that shit so bad.
Yeah. Well. All right. Well, we'll talk more about that when we get to the script because, anyway, if they were to make a comic, that's the one I would make because I mean, I guarantee it would sell. I'll tell you that. Like you're going to get people reading and talking about it. That's for sure. So I don't know. Next slow news cycle, maybe they'll think about it. But regardless, what they did come out with is the expanded edition novelization. This came out on March 17th, I think. One of those days. And this is something that in previous episodes of TIE Fighter Renegades, I personally said that I was very excited for and that I felt like could perhaps correct the course a bit of what Rise of Skywalker gave us, and maybe expand upon a few different things and give us a little something extra, or more than a little something extra. Give us some explanations and so on. Now, Rob, you didn't get the chance to read this yet, did you?
I wouldn't say I didn't get the chance. And this is going to be telling of something you'll ask later on, but I'm kind of over the sequel trilogy. I just don't have any interest in reading it.
Yeah, I mean, so normally when a Star Wars book comes out, of course I listen to it on Audible at like 2.5x speed, and I'll get through it in a day. This one took me a while to get through. Like, it just wasn't. There was large portions of it that just was not engaging at all. And I appreciate where you're coming from, Rob. And and really, like, we're both very much kind of like we said at the top. We're both very much like at a fuck Star Wars mode right now, because of just how so much of this is getting botched, even though we have some nice embers here and there. But anyway, so what I will say is this, because I don't need to do a long drawn out review. And frankly, the most annoying thing with this is how Screen Rant and all these other dumbass websites were making the clickbaitiest headlines out of little tidbits that they were putting out about what the novels said, because they got advanced copies, before everybody else did. So a lot of the really interesting stuff, I think people already, probably heard. But I'll say this: I think the sequel trilogy is actually fine as a series of novels. As movies, not so much. As a series of novels, I find myself largely enjoying them. They're colored by my negative opinion of most of the movies. But again, with the novels, you get to, because even in Last Jedi, I thought the novelization was actually one of the best Star Wars books I'd ever written, because you get into the heads of the characters, and there's things you can do. I mean, look, Rob and I, we love David Lynch's Dune, and it's amazing that Lynch had the sack to, have like an internal dialogue with the characters where they'd be whispering in their own heads. Most movies, most shows will never, ever do that. And I think a lot of what was going on in Star Wars needed that. And in the books, in the novelizations of the movies, you get that inner monologue that's happening. And it makes the story work a little bit more. Do you have any thoughts on that, Rob?
I mean, boy, yeah, I appreciate that you bring up Dune, and you're absolutely right. And the movies that do this usually get lampooned like crazy, for doing it. Another prime example is the theatrical release of Blade Runner, because you get Deckard's internal monologue, and people hate it. Right. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I personally love every variation on that film. Yeah. But I don't know. I just I appreciate your point about how the Star Wars, the sequel trilogy needs it. Here again, I'm coming from the point of view is I much would have rather them just to have made compelling films. Yeah. Whether they did that or not. Yeah. And to basically, continue this trend of basically, fixing their stories in post. Yeah. With even these novels. The movie came out. Yeah. Is kind of bullshit, in my opinion, still. I do not like this method of them and going back and, the fans come in and rip everything apart. And then the author goes, well, now I know what I need to write about. Yeah, this is really just a clever way for Disney to do special editions. And if anybody out there has problems with special editions, you should hate these novels. Because it's what they are, ultimately. Because I guarantee Ray Carson, who wrote, and she did a good job, who wrote Rise of Skywalker Expanded Edition, the novelization, that she, probably had marching orders after the movie came out, and she was
given things she needed to add into, into the chapters.
Right, which is why you don't get the book until months after the release.
Right, because normally movie novelizations, which are very common, used to be far more common, you get them the same day that the movie comes out.
Or sometimes before.
Yeah, or right, even sometimes before.
Yeah, in fact, the original Star Wars, the novelization came out like months in advance of the actual movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in fact, because if you look at the copyright date on the novelization for A New Hope, it's 1976, not 1977. Right. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. And anyway, I mean, it's definitely trying to fix things. I feel like this book does provide a lot more answers. If you liked Rise of Skywalker at all, I think it's a worthwhile read. Some of the answers I don't really like. I think this. So this is kind of, I think, the biggest one. I mean, there's fun little things in there, like you get a mention of Kaz from Star Wars Resistance, like Fireball, whatever is in it. Like that was cool. You get Alphabet Squadron, you get Phantom Squadron, you get a lot of these nice little mentions. You get a great moment that I'm sure they filmed. They just, because I think in a making special, I saw some footage of it where Lando is going around the Falcon before he takes it to Exegol. And that's a nice moment. You get a lot more of Leia, and Leia makes more sense in the book for obvious reasons because of how, the character had to get placed into the movie. You get more Rose Tico. I mean, there's a lot of improvements here.
Did they have anything in there about the Oracle?
The Oracle?
Yeah.
Like the blade? Like the
No. There was actually a sequence where Kylo Ren was going to basically
the spider creature.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That whole scene is in there, and you definitely get a lot more. Like the opening has a much better pacing because it's not this like Vine video that basically the movie opens up with that we see, where it's like 7 seconds. All right, we're here. We're ready. It's crazy. No, yeah, you get a lot more of that. You get some explanation. Yeah, you get the Oracle, right, which is like this weird kind of spider creature that comes out of a lake. That's there. There are a lot of little extra scenes within it that are nice. I think where it really stands tall is when it gets to explaining, when you get to the very end and it's explaining more what's happening with the Emperor. But throughout it, you are constantly getting bombarded with the idea that Kylo Ren really, really wants Rey to be his queen. So I don't want to call it an olive branch out to the Reylos, but and we know in the art book, there's a lot of this stuff in there. Mm-hmm. But he has like full visions of her beside him on the Sith throne. And he really, really wants that, even though the book then also with the kiss at the end makes it abundantly clear it's not a romantic kiss from Rey. Kylo clearly has romantic, or whatever you want to call it, power tripping intentions towards having Rey in his life. Which would explain, I guess, a lot of his manipulation and everything. Not that it explains why Reylos are so hot about this, though. But I mean, that was an interesting inclusion to get that sense, because I don't think that's anywhere in the movie that Kylo's doing what he's doing because he wants Rey to be his queen. I don't get that sense at all. Did you get that sense at all watching the movie?
You do, like. I would say throughout the trilogy, you do get this sense that he has some sort of obsession with her beyond her just being, Luke's student and a Jedi and this kind of stuff. I mean, you do have that moment in The Last Jedi, where they do the hand touching thing where, it's a little more than just sort of like the politics of Jedi versus Sith.
I can see that. I know that he fancied the idea, but like it's a driving force in the novel as to where I don't feel you get that in the film. And I don't mind it. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fine.
In fact, I mean, like that concept art that they show in the art book that's coming out of where they actually show, him on the Sith throne and raised beside him. I mean, that's hot.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I remember you shared it with me, and I was like, "Oh, that's hot as hell!" Like, this is
Right.
awesome.
It's like it was such a lost, squandered opportunity not to put something like that in the movie. Instead, we get pointy teeth Ray.
Right. Yeah. So that was anyway. I mean, that's there, and again, that's more of the stuff that's in the characters' heads that gets explored that I think does add to it overall. With the flow of the book, I want to talk about the Emperor thing that has to be talked about. With the flow of the book, I mean, it's not running. Again, the best description I've heard of Rise of Skywalker is that it's like 30 Vine videos spliced into one. And I think that's totally right. That's exactly how it feels. The book gets to breathe and take time, and which is a concept that J.J. Abrams, I don't think, has in anything. The idea of like taking time.
Did it seem like a more cohesive story? Did it seem less like they tried to take two movies and mash it into one?
Yeah, it felt far more cohesive because like Kylo, you get in his head a lot and he keeps referencing previous events in the other two movies where he realizes he was being lied to. I am being lied to. They kept telling me nobody cares. They were wrong. And so it makes everything feel far more cohesive. But all of that comes from not any added action. It comes from being in the heads of the characters. And that's what we didn't get, in the movies. And that's why I argue, and I don't think we got that in any of them. It's all like this kind of, it's almost artsy fartsy and it annoys the fuck out of me. And so that's why I say like the novels, I think are really the go-to way to experience these stories because it's the only way you get the complete picture in any way, shape or form. So now I want to talk about the Emperor. I think this is kind of the biggest reveal in it because a lot of people were wondering, and we even spent time asking about this when we did our review back in December, Rob, and that was this idea of the all Sith. Like when Palpatine says he is all the Sith, the book basically says, yes, he is literally like a ton of like any Sith Lord that was a part of the rule of two. He's them and they are in him. And in fact, those other consciousnesses can even take over another person. Personally,
so
go ahead.
I mean, so they're stealing from Dune again.
Yes, right. Yeah, go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, because something that happened in like the Dune sequels, they don't mention it in the first one, but primarily happens with the character of Alia, who is the brother of Paul Muad'Dib.
Yeah,
and basically what happens is that they have all of these ancestral memories that go back millennia and everything, and if you basically lose control, those memories can sort of manifest in a way and the personalities come forth to take over. And what happens to Alia is basically she makes a devil's deal with the Baron Harkonnen to shut out all the other voices in exchange for the Baron basically possessing her.
Yeah, and she basically goes nuts. I mean,
yeah.
So they definitely did. I mean, not that Star Wars doesn't have a history of borrowing from like everything else. That's kind of
in fact, Frank Herbert was going to sue Lucasfilm at one point.
So there it is. Yeah. So this concept of the all Sith. I mean, like in Dune, well, anything can work in Dune. In Star Wars, I thought this. It's such a big idea to bring into Star Wars to only have it be one fucking line. I just don't think it. You don't extrapolate that from the movie, so that's a fail. I'm glad the book kind of describes it more. But I feel like they just completely rewrote the Sith. And also, I feel it's a little insulting to George Lucas because George Lucas made it abundantly clear when Sith die, they're dead. They're gone,
Exactly.
and like stuff got cut out of Clone Wars because of that rule that George Lucas had.
Yep.
And so I think this is just shitty. And a bad, and I don't even like, and I am a fan of the Sith. Like that's my go-to side in Star Wars. Okay. And I'm saying, I think this is a dumb idea. Like I don't dig it at all. I mean, thoughts, Rob?
Same here. I think it's bullshit. Here, one, because like I said, here again, they're stealing from another franchise that they've stolen from before, and two, it's not even really a very good execution of the idea in and of itself.
Right.
And three, here, like you said, it's essentially a retcon and an insulting one at that.
Yeah.
So I hope this just sort of goes by the wayside and never gets mentioned again. You know, there's been stuff in novelizations. I'm thinking, for instance, the Revenge of the Sith novelization that gets brought up in that book that's never mentioned again. And I hope they do that here. I hope if they want to memory hole something, memory hole this.
I'm picturing Worf on the deflector dish of the Enterprise E in First Contact. Memory hole this, instead of assimilate this. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's a bad move. Actually, real quick, there is mention at when this kind of concludes and Rey is sort of on the floor on Exegol, there is mention of the world between worlds. I know there are people who felt like they don't ever want that to get mentioned again. She sees it for a brief moment at the end of Rise of Skywalker in the novelization. I thought that was interesting to include that because I thought that's something they were never going to touch again. Even though I still kind of theorized that they might bring Kylo Ren back at some point with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some interesting tidbits in the visual dictionary.
Yep.
So there's another name for the world between world, and I don't know if you're aware of it. It's called the Virgin Scatter.
Yeah. So on Exegol, I know. Go ahead. I know what you're going to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this idea that there's basically they've talked about a vergence in the Force, before. In fact, going back to Episode 1, and a vergence in the Force can be located around a place or even a person. In the case of Anakin Skywalker, the Qui-Gon Jinn identified the boy Anakin on Tatooine as a vergence in the Force. Another example of a vergence in the Force is Mortis from the Clone Wars. And so there's this idea that all of these vergences in the Force are somehow interconnected, and that linkage between them is the world between worlds.
Yeah. So now, because also in the visual dictionary on Exegol, they specifically say that the Sith Eternal there they think that there's a vergence in the middle of the planet.
Right.
And this is what made me think about that was when I read that in the visual dictionary. I was like, okay, well, Kylo Ren fell into the planet, basically. They're going to say that he entered the world between worlds, but Rey definitely sees it. Like, and Ray, the author, Ray Carson, actually describes it as if it was a world between worlds. Rey doesn't know what the fuck it is, but she sees it, and that's how she describes it, which I thought was interesting. Now,
this is the thing I have the least problem with. In fact, I mean, like, I think it's an interesting idea of this idea of a vergence scatter.
Yeah,
right? And the fact that it's all interlinked between the world between worlds, because it leads some interesting questions. That certainly there's the possibility for them to abuse it, and I completely agree. But the concept in itself is not a bad one.
No, yeah, I agree with you on that. Totally. Yeah. And well, as Luke Skywalker says, nobody's ever really gone. So, yeah. So back with the All Sith for a minute, the one good thing about this idea that I think makes it very interesting, that actually enhances Return of the Jedi. And this is what I was talking about earlier that I was kind of hinting at when I went on a little side train. When Luke Skywalker tosses his lightsaber away, okay, the way the book describes what happens is that you have to kill your Sith master in a moment of perfect hatred. And then the book calls it a God consciousness, which that sounds very Dune as well. That the Sith God consciousness will then transfer into the other person. Okay. So it's very easy to extrapolate that basically Palpatine wanted to live on forever inside of Rey. And his consciousness could have taken over inside of Rey. But so now when I think of Return of the Jedi, and when the Emperor is saying, go ahead and strike me down, go ahead and kill me, I wonder if that was him trying to get Luke to take on now retcon, of course. Okay. But now that's a moment where if Luke did that, he would literally have become Palpatine. And that's why Palpatine's goading him. And what's great about it is that that's what makes it all the more powerful for Luke to take his lightsaber and toss it away, because that was the only way he could keep that from happening, is he had to absolutely refuse to kill. Otherwise, the Sith God consciousness would have came in. I mean, again, that's all after the fact. That's all bullshit made up by J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, like, it does add something there, even though, again, overall, I hate the idea. I think it's a terrible idea. I mean, thoughts, Rob?
I'm going to dissent on this one. It's a hard pass for me, because I don't think it enhances Return of the Jedi anyway. I think it cheapens it, because the act of putting down the sword is a heroic moment.
Yes.
And it's not something that really gets brought up a lot in, when we talk about the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And Star Wars is one of the few franchises that did it really well. Yeah. And I feel that his motivations as they were and his reason behind it were good enough as it was. To try to add anything into it or tack something onto it is, in my mind, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're going to claim that. It's just a thought that occurred to me. But I, as much as you're dissenting, I do agree with you. And as I've said many times, it's my favorite moment in Star Wars, when he tosses, the saber and says, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. It's such a badass moment, to just say I'm done, Right. So yeah. No, I hear that.
And it's even more heroic because Luke does in that moment what the entire Jedi Order couldn't do during the Clone Wars.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that to me is way more meaningful than any kind of Sith Godhead bullshit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it fulfills what Yoda said, wars don't make one great. I mean, and Luke's just like, yeah, all right. Over, done. It's beautiful. So, well, anyway, the book, go for it. I mean, it's definitely in my opinion, it is the way to experience Rise of Skywalker. It does clarify that Nien Nunb is dead. That's abundantly clear now.
Did they kill Snap too?
Yes.
It's confirmed. Okay.
Yeah, Snap is dead because Poe has a moment with that. We do get a little more Zori Bliss in this. Go ahead.
Did they mention his wife at all?
Poe's?
Snap's wife?
Oh, Snaps? Oh, no. No, I don't think they mentioned it during the battle. Yeah, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity.
Especially how much the work they put into that relationship in the Poe Dameron comic.
Yeah, agreed. Though, something that is great at the very end. Now, in the movie, we see on Endor, or on the moon of Endor, we see Wicket, right? Mm-hmm. Reacting to what's going on. In the book, again, you get to be in the characters' heads, or you get to spend more time with them. Wicket basically is with his son. And Wicket says to his son, yes, everything's all right. The god C-3PO saved us. He's like, the golden one saved us again. And it's so great. I was like, oh man, that should have been in the movie. That was, if you're going to put handing the medal to Chewie, you should have put Wicket in there with that. That was so brilliant.
Yeah.
That was a nice touch. But Yeah, so I mean, there's just a lot of little things with that, and again, I think the way to experience the sequel trilogy, if you're running with new canon, the movies aren't half as good as the books, in my opinion. Even though, again, I don't like everything that's certainly in the Rise of Skywalker novel. I wasn't terribly impressed. Something else though that's going on, just quick, is that one Darafin, I think it is. It's a Sith word. The Sith Eternal Star Destroyer that blows up Kijimi is still out there. Like,
right. Yeah.
Which I think is great. I can't wait to hear some more of that story. If they ever bother, but anyway, that's just kind of so yeah, there's some clarifications in this book. So it's worthwhile for checking as far as that goes. But as far as like it being a great read, I'm not going to say that. It's definitely not going to give it the glowing review I gave Last Jedi.
That's where I was going to go with this. I was going to ask you is if you had to rank the sequel trilogy novelizations, how would you order them?
Yeah, Last Jedi is definitely the best one because it's actually a great read, and like you just get great moments. Yeah, I'd probably put Last Jedi. I mean, Alan Dean Foster is such a great writer. I guess I'd give it to Force Awakens, and then I do Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
But I only put, just because Alan Dean Foster is a great fucking writer, that's the only reason I put that one in number 2. So anyway, but there you have it, folks. There's a review of the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and check it out if you must. You want to move on to other things, Rob?
Yes, let's do. Right. Let's talk about something good.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh yes. Let's talk about Colin Trevorrow's leaked script for his episode 9, or at least one version of it, known as Duel of the Fates. That was the working title. This did get leaked. As far as I know, Trevorrow confirmed that this is the real deal, right?
Yeah, he's very sparingly responded to people asking him about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's pretty much confirmed. It's from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I am going to say first that how did this get leaked? We've been saying this for years, and I firmly believe it. I think he is at war with Disney in Hollywood. And
yeah, I don't know about that.
No?
Because Burnett talked about this.
Oh, right. Oppenheimer Burnett did initially leak it.
Yeah. And he didn't leak it. Well, I mean, he sort of leaked it.
Well, he talked about it.
He read about it. He read the script and basically gave his synopsis of it. Mm-hmm. But the thing that he talked about is I guess somewhere out there's basically some sort of like archive in Hollywood of scripts that never got made into movies.
Right. Love to
and it's yeah, exactly. But it's only available to basically anybody who has any sort of access or clout in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, in any case, you read this, and because it's out there, folks, there's a link in the show notes too that'll link to the link for it. We didn't link directly. And man, what a read. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it sure as fuck a better movie than Rise of Skywalker by a long shot.
I mean, it feels like Star Wars, and that's like the highest compliment I can give right now.
Yep. Yeah, it's 128 pages, and it absolutely does feel like Star Wars. I mean, let's be clear here. Certainly when this was written, they thought that Carrie Fisher was alive when it was written. So even if Trevorrow was still in charge of 9, there would have been changes. Probably pretty heavy ones because Leia has a lot in this script.
Right.
But regardless, I think this is fantastic. I mean, there is no redemption story for Kylo Ren. He doubles down on going evil. We get this. What did you think of the character? I'm trying to think of the character's name. There's the character who you find out was actually the master to
Tor Valum.
What is it again?
Tor Valum.
Tor Valum, right. So this is actually Plagueis's master, right? Or who taught Darth Plagueis. And we get that character. I mean, what do you think about that character?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I did get the sense that he wasn't necessarily Plagueis's master, but somebody's talked about this, and I guess they asked Colin or somebody else, and like this character isn't like he's associated with the Sith, but he's not like explicitly a Sith, which explains why he's still alive.
Ah, okay.
Because Palpatine would have had to have killed him.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, I think that...
Or Plagueis would have had to kill him before taking on Palpatine as a student. So...
Yeah, well, I think that would have fit in with the narrative around Snoke up until Rise of Skywalker, because there's a dark side character, very powerful, that exists outside of the Sith line, it seems. So that would have fit. That's okay. Yeah, I can dig that. That was interesting. Rey putting on the black suit, like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, the double-bladed lightsaber. Go ahead.
And I don't know. Hopefully we'll include it in the show notes, but there's been concept art leaked for Duel of the Fates as well.
Yes,
and
it is in the show notes.
That's one of the things they show is Rey basically wearing the black Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi outfit, and it's damn good.
Yeah. It looks awesome.
God, it just looks great. I mean, it looks better than anything she's worn throughout the entire sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is no garbage collector. This is somebody who's got shit figured out. And so there's so much we could talk about with this script. It is world-class script writing or screenwriting. It really, really is. So as soon as I read it, I had no debate at the time. Is this real? I said, no, this is the real deal, because if this is fan fiction, whoever that is better get fucking hired right now. Because that is grade A screenwriting. Anyway, so there is this kind of the gist of the script is that Rey is discovering that balance in the Force means that you need to accept the dark side and the light side, and they need to like work together. Okay. Inside of you,
which
personally.
is kind of what they were doing in the old EU, is they were kind of pointing towards that.
Yeah. Like a gray Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. And then Disney came in and they dropped that like a fucking hot potato.
Yeah, I mean it admittedly, I think George Lucas made it pretty clear that like the concept of a gray Jedi is anathema. Like because he said, that if you go towards the dark side, there's something wrong with you. Like I don't think his concept of balance is that if you go to the dark side, you are unbalanced.
Right. Because he described the dark side as a cancer.
Right.
And it's not like, like you can't just keep a little bit of cancer in you and be okay.
Right. Yeah. So I get George Lucas, and I am the first guy in the world who will respect the creator's wishes. But at the same time, I love this. And actually, what's amazing about this script is that it is very philosophical, and it's actually deeply philosophical. It's not like surface or what's the word I'm looking for? It's not surface level philosophy like much of Star Wars is, where it doesn't have any real meat to it. This has meat to it, in my opinion. And in fact, I really love, because Rey is accepting the dark side as well, even though the old EU doesn't matter, anymore with any of this, the fact that she has a lightsaber reminiscent of Exar Kun's, who was the first guy to have a double-bladed lightsaber, and his was blue. It wasn't Darth Maul. I thought that was a nice touch, and I thought like it kind of made a full circle, because that's where the big split happened with Exar Kun back in the old EU. And to have that come full circle now, where we're going to bring balance, and that includes very clear elements to when there was a schism, I thought was dynamite. I mean, that alone spoke to me anyway, even though... Go ahead. I mean, throughout this entire script, the thing that really,
got me, not just the quality and depth of the script, but whoever was writing this had an intimate understanding of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the kind of understanding that is as good or even rivaling that of ours.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like even when you're just reading about Coruscant, you're like, wow, this person knows their shit. Yeah.
Right. And or another great, and this script does the very thing that Brian and I have been complaining about for a long time now, is that it acknowledges the Star Wars universe outside of the films, because we go to Mortis.
Right.
And so I mean that, to me, that is a huge deal, that they're going to acknowledge something outside of the main Star Wars films, outside of maybe just a split second of a voice at the end of a movie.
Yeah.
Which, like what we got in Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, I mean that's what real. I mean, like it hits it on every level. It feels like Star Wars. It's got depth to it. It's written by somebody who has intimate understanding and has watched more than just the films. I honestly don't believe for a second that J.J. Abrams has fucking watched anything out of episodes 1 through 6.
Yeah, even if that, like 4, 5, and 6 certainly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to kind of lead to our question of the month if we get to it. And we're not going there yet, but I got to bring this in here. I can't help but wonder if the no-go on this script was it had too many elements that it ran into a copyright issue. It had too many George Lucas elements in it that it became a problem. Because here's a thing that's weird to me, and this kind of speaks to what we were saying earlier in the show about how Rise of Skywalker failed. All Disney had to do, they had all the stories they could possibly want. In fact, they literally ripped Rise of Skywalker is Dark Empire, poorly executed, right? All they had to do was make the Thrawn trilogy. And just turn it into a movie. That's all you had to do. You have these great stories that Star Wars fans have reacted positively to. You didn't even have to come up with anything original. There was no need, and they just, go ahead and reboot the canon still, but you can take those stories and have a great time. And they just didn't do it. And the reason I think they didn't do it, and this is something I'm learning more and more and more, especially as I'm wondering what the fuck is happening to the franchises that I love, is that the question is constantly being asked in the writer's room, who do we have to pay to be able to use X, Y, and Z? And sometimes I think the cost is too high. I'll give you a quick example. In Star Trek Enterprise, there was the character of T'Pol, great character. She was supposed to be T'Pau, who is also a great character from the original series. The reason they didn't make her T'Pau, this is the only reason, is because they would have had to have paid royalties to Ted Sturgeon if they used his character. And so they made a new one. And I mean, the character had turned out great, but I mean, these are the conversations that are happening in these writers' rooms. And I gotta wonder, because like, JJ, what the fuck? Why would you create Hosnian Prime when you could have an immediate, wildly emotional reaction by blowing up Coruscant, in Force Awakens? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I can't help but wonder if Trevorrow got kicked off of this, because this script is amazing. Why that he got kicked off of it because, it would have cost too much, or Disney wouldn't have taken enough of a cut. That's my going theory. What do you got, Rob?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this many times before. I'm still not entirely. I mean, I admit that it's a possibility, but I'm not entirely sold on it. My counter argument would be that, you bring up, and rightly so, that Rise of Skywalker is a bad ripoff of Dark Empire. So if that's the case, did, Tom Veitch and Cam Kennedy get a payday?
Well, I said they should have. I tweeted that day, the night that I saw the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing probably not. Right.
Yeah, even though, they copied it pound for pound. The Emperor having a secret world. They even had the fucking Sovryn protectors, but that was only in the visual dictionary. It was insane how much they copied it.
And even in the concept art for Duel of the Fates, they do borrow some stuff from Dark Empire too, because we do see the Eclipse class Star Destroyer, which is really
Yes.
cool. I think if they were going to borrow anything from that comic, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fucking A. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, do you have a theory as to why I mean, there's more we can talk about in the script. That's interesting, but do you have a theory as to why they didn't use this, or, what anything?
Because people are saying, bring up the Carrie Fisher thing, but that's bullshit because the Trevorrow's involvement in the film fell apart before she died.
Correct.
So that doesn't hold any water. I honestly don't know, Brian. I tell you, there's a story out there about the behind the scenes in Lucasfilm
Mm-hmm.
and everything that happened from 2012 to now.
Yeah.
And I am certain it is a page turner of a story. Whether or not we'll ever get it, I don't know. I have a feeling certain people are going to have to die first.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking too.
Namely Bob Iger.
Yeah, I was going to say Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob's got to go before the story gets out. But yeah, I would love to know what the reason is. I definitely, we get every indication that Trevor got the fucking short end of the stick on this whole thing.
Yeah.
And he has every right to be bitter about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh man. But I really recommend everybody read this script. Even the stuff at the end where basically doesn't it seem like everybody gets to more or less use the Force at the end? I mean, like that's kind of a direction they're going.
Right. And that's interesting. I would like, cause they had been hinting at that, for years now that, everybody has access to the Force.
Right.
They've been saying, Pablo Hidalgo has said this a number of times,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has access to the Force. There's, the old idea in the EU that certain people are just born Force sensitive, is gone in the Disney era.
Right.
And that this plays into that. It actually makes sense here. So
yeah.
I agree with it. So,
yeah.
Why they didn't, follow through in Rise of the Skywalker, I don't know, because there's obviously elements in here that they borrowed from and then even discarded. Like we talked about the Oracle in the novelization. That's clearly what Tor Valum turned into.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's some hints in Rise of Skywalker that that Finn is becoming Force sensitive. There's people who make arguments.
That's pretty explicit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, in fact, we even got a different last name for Rey, which I don't know where the fuck it came from. Was Solana, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is out of nowhere. But I mean, people are complaining about that, saying, well, that doesn't mean anything to us. But I think that gave an opportunity. Go ahead.
Why does that have to mean anything?
No, you're right. It doesn't. It could just be a story prompt.
Yeah. Why does everything have to be this big fucking incest fest of characters that are all related to one another?
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's something I don't like that Rise of Skywalker did either.
Yeah.
It really doubled down on the bloodlines. And I'm like, no, we don't need that. That's not necessary.
I hear enough about fucking dirty bloodlines in the news every day, and I get sick and tired of it. So
yeah, and it's contradictory even on JJ's part, because JJ doesn't want to talk about midichlorians because he thinks it's a dumb idea. But then he's like, oh, but bloodlines are a thing. It's like, well, wait, But anyway, that's him for you. I thought that the end planet in this movie, or in this script, Modesta, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Clearly a reference to Modesto, where George Lucas grew up.
Yeah.
I think that
the perfect.
Yeah, very nice touch. People thought it was too cheesy. I said, you're crazy. That's beautiful.
Here again, this is somebody who has intimate knowledge of Star Wars, and not just the in-universe knowledge, but the outside universe knowledge as well.
Right.
This is somebody who read all of the Rinsler making of books.
Yes.
And understands what's going on.
Yeah. 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 I weep for the world that we didn't get this movie, because it's go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a tragedy. It is a doubling of the tragedy of both losing Carrie Fisher and losing this version of the film.
Yeah.
Uh, the world is lesser for it.
No, it really is. I mean, because it's a very conclusive film. Like, it has an ending. It
Yeah.
has people die. It's dark. The bad guys win a lot, which is something I think Trevor, this speaks to what you're saying, Rob, about how whoever this is knew a lot about Star Wars, because, George Lucas's classic act of, you got to have a dark middle. I don't think Last Jedi was a dark middle at all. And I think this movie kind of remedied that, or the script would have remedied that. Yeah, it's just a shame because it was so fucking well done. There's so many great lines in it. Even, I mean, this is for 128 pages. It's really well written. Go ahead.
And you know what? It makes Rey a great character.
Yes.
I mean, her
Yes.
evolution is earned.
Yep.
In this script.
Yep. She's cool.
I mean, it's a disservice to the character too. I mean, Rey could have been a great character.
I could totally see why when I read this script and because we all know the story where Trevorrow told, or Trevorrow, whatever, told Daisy Ridley what was going to happen to her character, and she cried. Daisy Ridley, the actress, cried. I can totally see why she would have cried at the end of this and would have been like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And fuck yeah. Yeah, what a pity. Bottom line, what a pity on this. I mean, do you have any interesting things you want to add into the Duel of Fates, Rob?
I just, like I said, I love everything. I mean, and really you do have to take a look at the concept art. The uprising on Coruscant would have been so amazing on.
Oh, that Star Destroyer, the prism ship coming up, that would have been insane.
Yes. Oh my God. And the fact that we're going back to Coruscant and that we like, they keep talking about how much in Rise of Skywalker, we hear so much about how the First Order has really kind of trashed the galaxy.
Yeah.
But we don't really see it.
Right.
Show, don't tell. Well, in this script and the concept art, they show it, and it's really good.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. We are definitely going to do a review of the art book when, hell, it's almost an if it comes out. I mean, I know they're saying March 31st.
It's going to come out the end of the month. I have a bad feeling that the concept art for Duel of Fates, the reason the art book's being delayed is because that artwork was cut out and it's being memory holed.
That I don't know how I'm going to react if that ends up happening, because
I would expect it if I were you. Just brace yourself, because I can't think of any other good reason. The book was ready to go. In fact, it was printed and they destroyed the copies before it was put on shelves.
I mean, there's a link in the show notes. Everyone can look at a lot of the panels that have been leaked. I mean, we know like what's there. Like, I want to I don't want to take any legal action against Disney, obviously, but like, I want to do something about it. It's like, no, like, look, okay, you fucked up. We know you fucked up. The only people that are going to buy this are the people that care. So give us the whole damn thing, and give us the money shots. Right. And that would be it. That would be them doubling down against like the fans that really care. And I think that's damn shitty. I mean, I understand that they're dealing with the Reylos, and hey, I don't like them either, or I'm not a fan of them either. But I don't know.
Well,
we'll see.
Stranger things have happened. It took 35 years for somebody to make a comic book of George Lucas's original script treatment for the Star Wars.
That's true.
So who knows when Uncle Bob's gone and maybe some other people, and the Star Wars, franchise is in other hands, and somebody says, hey, we had that cool idea back in the day. Why doesn't somebody make a comic book out of it? Maybe that'll happen. I don't know if I'll live to see it, but damn, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, anyway, folks, link is in the show notes. Do check all of it out. I guarantee you, if you don't want to read the Rise of Skywalker Expanded Edition novelization, I completely understand, but you are in for a real treat getting to see or getting to read, see the art and read this script. It is well done. So, okay. Shall we move on to some other news?
Yeah, we do have some more good news, don't we?
Yeah, we got a little more good news. Let's take it. So we have for Mandalorian season 2, we actually ended up basically over a couple days with a double header of interesting casting decisions. And we know now that in season 2 of Mandalorian, we are going to get Ahsoka Tano. Of course, I think a lot of people were expecting this. I think I'm kind of just waiting for Sabine Wren to get announced too. But I mean, Dave Filoni's running the show, so why wouldn't his greatest creation show up, in it? And she is being played by none other than Rosario Dawson, who is somebody that I guess was a lot of fans were wanting to play her,
and even her herself.
Yeah,
she responded to the fans saying, "Hey, this is the person to cast to play an older Ahsoka," and she's like, "Yes, please."
Yeah. I mean, Rob, what do you think of Rosario Dawson as a pick? And
I think it's great. I'm tickled, happy that we're finally going to get a live action Ahsoka. And I honestly I was a little surprised because from what I understand is Filoni is he's still the head of animation over at Lucasfilm,
right.
And the next project he was working on was supposed to be basically the follow up to Rebels, and from what it sounded like, it was going to be kind of like, the search for Ezra.
Yeah. Which maybe this will play into that announcement of a new show,
Yeah, that would be cool.
That'd be some nice canon connections, in my opinion. I think this is a win, and I'll tell you why, because Rosario Dawson. So the only thing I really know her from personally, I know her from Sin City, but I also know her from the Grindhouse movies that Tarantino and what was his name? Was it Robert Rodriguez then? Mm-hmm. That they were making, and she was in the one with Kurt Russell with the car.
Okay.
And they more or less all those gals in that Grindhouse film did their own stunts, including her. And that's a very intense film. I love it. And I thought she was dynamite. So yeah, I think she's a great pick as well. I have no problems with this because I want to see Ahsoka get down and dirty as she does in Clone Wars. I mean, she is not somebody that sits in the chair while everything else is going on. So, so I think it's a good pick. Having Ahsoka in season 2, how do you feel about that, Rob?
Yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm tickled pleased. I'm happy. It was unexpected because, like I said, I thought they were going to do something else with that character with the next animated project that they're working on. But to have her even sooner in the next season of Mandalorian, even better.
Yeah, I think this is really going to be the winning sauce that'll finally get a lot of Star Wars fans to watch the animated series, the various animated series, because there's still a lot of them out there that haven't. And as we've said many times on the show, you're missing out on the best Star Wars out there in many ways. So I hope that this bridges that, just like I hope if they ever bring in Dr. Aphra, hopefully that'll get Star Wars fans reading some comics. And thankfully it seems like there's some good ones out there for them to read now. Great pick. I'm excited for it as well. Great choice. The other interesting choice is the second announcement that we got, and that is that Michael Biehn is going to be in Mandalorian season 2. Of course, probably best known for playing Kyle Reese in the original Terminator film, and if you watch the extended edition of Terminator 2, of course, he was in that in a dream sequence as well. A great actor, in my opinion. He's done other stuff as well, and I think he's
Sergeant
just
Hicks in Aliens.
Yeah, bingo, you got it. Yes, talk about a really great franchise. There we go. So I thought that this was a win, but I mean, I can't help but think, like, basically they're putting in all the actors that if there was a live action TV show Star Wars made in the 1980s, these are all the people I'd want in this show.
Yeah.
And that's kind of weird, right? I mean, how do you feel about that?
In one sense, it's a little bit, sort of wish fulfillment / fan service.
Yeah.
But the way that they've done fan service in this show so far, I don't really have a problem with it.
No, they know how to do it. I mean, Carl Weathers has been great.
I think he'll play a great bounty hunter. Certainly, God, I wish they had gotten him to play the bounty hunter in, what was it, like episode 2 or 3, the one that Bill Burr played. because fuck that guy.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, that would have been really cool. A part of me kind of I wonder if he's going to play Dengar. Do we know if Dengar is still alive post Star Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I know we've read him in comic books, but I think that'd be brilliant.
He was alive in the EU.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really been any mention of him, post Return of the Jedi.
I think that'd be a win if they brought him in as Dengar. There was an actor that played him in Empire Strikes Back, obviously, but I think that'd be pretty cool. So, well, anyway, we'll see. I think this is another great choice because I think he's a great actor and he's somebody who has chops in the genre.
Great character actor.
Yes.
kind of the perfect person to cast in this kind of show.
Right. And if it's a character that has to go through some kind of hell, you totally believe Michael Biehn can survive it, because what he went through with Terminator and Aliens.
Right.
He was awesome in Aliens. Fucking A, man.
So I guess, and he was also, another good example is he played the bad guy in The Abyss. Did a great job.
Oh, yes.
And this kind of leads to my question is for you, Brian, is Michael Biehn, friend or foe in The Mandalorian?
Oh, is he going to be a villain, you mean?
Yeah. What do you think? Because he could do both.
You're right. I say villain. Because, and the reason to do that is because, the episodes of Mandalorian aren't that long. And you don't get long seasons. You have to sell somebody on being a bad guy based on their own gravitas. Like, Werner Herzog. You don't need to know a whole lot about the Moff that he played or whatever. It's Werner Herzog. So you're like, okay, yep, he's bad. You just get it. And I think that bringing in Michael Biehn just instantly gives the character credibility, and you don't have to spend, because Hollywood in general does a terrible job with villains these days. But I think you bring in Michael Biehn and he can bring his own gravitas to it, to where regardless of how they write, you're going to buy the villain. So that's also what I want, but also what I think. How about you?
Yeah, I think it is. I almost wonder if, and shoot, I forget the character's name, but was it like the third or fourth episode, where they're going after that bounty for, and somebody comes up and finds her at the end, and we don't know who it was even now.
Right.
If that's him.
Right. The character played by the Asian gal there. That's terrible.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I wanted to say Michelle Yeoh, but I know that's not who it is.
Yeah. That'd be all right too. Give her a better job than what she had to do in Star Trek. Anyway, I just thought about Michael Biehn he was in Planet of Terror. He was in the other Grindhouse movie, the not the one that Rosario Dawson was in, but in the other one, he was I think he was kind of a villain in that. Yeah. So I'm thinking villain. Okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah. And that character, that mystery character, that's a good choice, while we're at it. So, both, I think, very good news. Of course, I don't think we have any doubts about how good, Mandalorian 2 or Mandalorian season 2 is going to be. I think, that they know what's working for them. And as long as they stick to that, we'll be fine. So, anything else to add on that, Rob?
Yeah, I just, like I said, I hope they can pull off for a second season. It's funny because somebody posted a meme in the Telegram group, basically alluding to the fact that Mandalorian is going to suffer under the weight of trying to hold up the entire franchise.
It's literally carrying Star Wars.
The Mandalorian is Atlas.
Yeah. His greatest foe yet. Can he carry the entire franchise? Oh man. Yeah. I remember seeing that. That was great. And folks, do join us in the Telegram group. If you go to tiefighter.xyz, there is a link for this. You'll see the Telegram symbol up at the top right, and you can join it right there. So do feel, and I'll put it in the show notes as well, or hopefully I'll remember to put it in the show notes, but you can definitely find it there when you go to tiefighter.xyz. So season 2 looking good. I mean, we know we have Gina Carano. I mean, like, everybody's coming back that made it great in the first place. So yeah, I'm very hopeful about it. Want to move on?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's go into a show that has come to an end, and that is Star Wars Resistance. That only ended up going about 2 seasons. We're still not exactly sure why it only got 2 seasons. There's definitely a lot more story to tell. And in fact, I would argue that the last few episodes of season 2 clearly set up a lot more stories to be told with Star Wars Resistance. So I'm kind of baffled as to what was going on there. I don't know if we'll ever find out the reality, but I guess really, I don't know that we need to get too deep into the episodes themselves. I think it's worthwhile to, give it like an overall feeling of the series. We did finally get some Griff Halloran, though. We were complaining about that, and we finally got some. And he even has a pretty good moment with Kaz where he says, like, this is why I left the Empire, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of cool. And he acted like the badass that really we expected. So that was fun. But I mean, how did you feel? Do you want to talk about season 2 at all, or just say, like, how you felt about the series overall?
I mean, yeah, the series overall, this is definitely the weak link in the chain of, Star Wars animated properties. The final episodes weren't bad.
Right.
They weren't great either.
Yeah, I mean, we got Kylo Ren in them,
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of like doing his thing, not being any more compelling than he was in the comic book.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah. I mean, Kaz survives, Yeager survives. In fact, they're both Yeager as well as mentioned in Rise of Skywalker novel. But anyway,
it's a very predictable, happy ending sort of, conclusion.
Yeah, they find a planet to land on, and they land there, and they like even talk about starting to do races again and everything. Yeah, I don't know. It was just I can't imagine why I'd ever go back and watch this again.
No.
But I as to where Rebels, Clone Wars, I'll watch those over and over again.
Yeah, because those had impact upon the greater Star Wars universe. Whereas, like with everything else seeming to do with the sequel trilogy, it's just kind of like meh.
Yeah,
it doesn't really have kind of any sort of consequence.
Yeah. I mean, you get like these first order characters created, but then, most of them end up getting killed off. Like I think Pyre got killed off, Rucklin, all kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the most interesting characters were the pirates.
Yeah. They were great. Yeah. They actually had a pretty good arc too.
Right. Right.
It's a good point.
And they conclude that, even before the last episode. So, I mean, yeah, what else is there to say?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have a good battle sequence in the last couple episodes. It's a 2-parter that it ends off with. I mean, that was good. But yeah, it's one of those cartoons where it's like, oh yeah, you're here to sell toys. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And Star Wars isn't even really good at that anymore. So
yeah, well, no one is, to be fair, but yeah. Unless it's Baby Yoda, then it can sell pretty well.
Right.
So
it's not kids buying it though.
Yeah. Well, anyway, anything else you want to add on with Star Wars Resistance? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of forgettable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you were holding off to watch this based on how we felt on it, then give it a pass. It's really. It's not that. I don't. Do you feel like this time with this series was a good investment of your time?
Oh no, I'm so glad I watched every episode at 2x. Like it's 10 minutes a pop because I just did not care.
I mean, that's maybe that's the best thing you could say about it is it's quick.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do it, because I love the listeners. So, oh man. Anyway, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a great comic book series out of it somewhere. I'd love it if like we're reading something with the Empire and Griff Halloran shows up or Doza. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, if Cass showed up in the next animated project where, and he meets up with Ezra in some way, I mean, I would be opposed to that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, yeah, bring these characters elsewhere, but what they've done, I don't know, just wasn't very exciting.
No.
Yeah. So again, as we said earlier, Mandalorian is literally carrying the entire franchise on his shoulders. Good thing he's got a jetpack. He needs it. So anyway, well, something that's actually, of course, this is digging from Star Wars past, but this is kind of an audible that we're calling here of some gaming news. And we'll get into this briefly, and then I think we can get into our question of the month. But out of nowhere, so as of this recording, and I'll let a little secret behind the magic, and even that's kind of a pun, behind the magic, when we talk about Star Wars. But we recorded this over 2 days, and so this morning, before we were recording, Nintendo did a little Nintendo Direct, as they do, and the whole world lights up because it's one of the few companies that still can deliver a smile on your face in the world, unlike Disney. I mean, unlike other companies. CBS. And yeah, or CBS. Oh God. I have to watch that tonight. I have to watch the finale of Picard. I'm not looking forward to this, Rob. Are you ready? Are you ready for the greatness that is Star Trek?
I don't even know if I'm going to watch it tonight.
I mean, it is here. This is all I'm going to say. It is the absolute worst time to have a toilet paper shortage, because
sales of Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's Dune are up, and that's the. Apparently, people are finding the alternative sources to the shit tickets. So, hey, maybe it's not that bad after all.
I saw that tweet you made, man. That was so great. He's just like, I run low on shit tickets. Well, we've got books not written, Dune books not written by Frank Herbert that are in stock, ready for you to wipe your ass with. So great. Oh man. Well, anyway, yeah, Star Trek is making me shit myself, and not in the exciting way. It's so bad. Oh, God damn it. Anyway, okay, we're not here. Not right now. We're not here to talk Star Trek. Maybe another time. But who knows what the future holds. So anyway, some good news. So this morning, and a lot of people, this initially got dropped on the PlayStation blog, and it was co-announced that a lot of classic Star Wars games were getting reported onto modern consoles, the PS4, the Nintendo Switch. I think the Xbox is being left out of all this. I don't really care. And the game, so Jedi Knight 2 came out last year. The game that I was really excited for was Jedi Academy that they announced. Because this is, I mean, Rob, tell me, would you say this is the best lightsaber combat in any Star Wars game in Jedi Academy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because you finally get you get different types of lightsabers. You get to do the dual wield, you get to do the double handle or the double blade. Yeah. So, I mean, there's reasons to play this game still. And it did, and it was announced for PlayStation that it would come out on March 26th, but it wasn't clear for the Switch if it would. But it did. Everybody pretty much said, yeah, it's probably going to come out for the Switch on the same day. So Nintendo did a Direct, and come to find out, yes, Jedi Academy did get released for the Switch. I picked it up this morning. I already started playing it. They have the 16-player online multiplayer is there. I mean, there are great fucking times to be had, and a great story with Jedi Academy to get into. You get Kyle Katarn, you get Luke in the black suit, you got the total package here, in my opinion. And spoiler alert, it is a game much like Knights of the Old Republic, where you get to choose what side you end up on at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And so there's multiple endings. Are you a good guy? Are you a bad guy? Are you light side or dark side? And you can end up dark side. And I remember when I played this, when it first came out, and I chose dark side, of course. And you want to talk about needing toilet paper. It was awesome. I mean, that ending, go ahead.
Jedi Knight did that before KOTOR too.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
It did get
because
the
I mean, at
chips.
the very end, you had Emperor Kyle Katarn sitting on the Sith throne, which was fucking badass.
Oh, that was so great. That was so great. I'm going to lay this here. This is something that's been brewing in my mind. I'm thinking like, we need alternate universes to these fucking shit shows that these mega corporations are putting on us. And I was like, we should just have the Katarn verse for Star Wars, because like everything around Kyle Katarn was it was all great. And Jedi Academy included, and man, to ignore that, what a shame. But anyway, I'm just putting that there. Let's keep going. So Jedi Academy, great game. I started playing it on my Switch. It feels just as good as it did, boy, however many years ago that was. The multiplayer is fantastic. It's a brilliant game. But they also announced that they are going to release there's no release date on this, but they're going to release a remaster, not just a port like Jedi Academy, but a remaster of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, which was one of the biggest Nintendo games of its day, actually, and also came out for PC later on and so on. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye for. That is another real gem, just a great, great game. What would you say about Racer, Rob?
Yeah, I mean I picked it up when they released it on GOG, immediately. So it was probably one of the few, if not the only Episode 1 game that was worth a damn.
Yeah, we had some stinkers with that. Like we had Star Wars Obi-Wan. We had the Episode 1.
Oh man, what a shame that was, because that was built upon the same engine that they used for Jedi Knight.
Yeah, technically that was going to be like Jedi. They even originally, I remember on the cover of a magazine, they were calling it, because Jedi Academy was Jedi Knight 3, but they never titled it that.
Right.
And they were going to title Star Wars Obi-Wan Jedi Knight 3.
Yeah, and it was supposed to get a PC release, but it ended up being an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, which again, unfortunately, it ended up being crap, and so it's just as well. I mean, there were, Jedi Power Battles was good if you got the Dreamcast version, and there was Battle for Naboo, which was okay, but was basically Rogue Squadron with a different sheen.
Right.
So
yeah.
But I hear you. This was the great Episode 1 game, because I think it played off of probably the best scene in the movie, and I say that as somebody that loves Episode 1. So this is a welcome. I'll take a remaster of this all day long. I do think Racer Revenge, which was a sequel game that came out for the PS2, I do think that's a better game, but that's fine. I mean, you're comparing the best with the best, so what the hell? Like that, that's all right.
I would love if they ended up re-releasing that on other platforms, because it was always a shame to me that ended up being exclusive to consoles. Kind of the same thing with Jedi Starfighter. That's another game I never got to play because I didn't have a PlayStation 2.
Yeah, and that's a game with a great story too. It's all about Adi Gallia, Jedi Starfighter. I mean, one of the reasons I keep a PS2 around is literally for those two games. Is Racer Revenge and Jedi Starfighter. Even though I think you can play them on the PlayStation Network, I'm not really clear on that, but regardless. So really awesome that these classic Star Wars games are getting released, because it's not like EA is coming out with anything fucking good. Or, well, Jedi Fallen Order, you reviewed that, Rob. That was
that was good. Yeah. You watched the clips on YouTube.
Yeah, I watched the movie version of it, which I enjoyed a lot of that. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it was finally somebody who did a good Star Wars game. It was, I mean, like, I'm not a huge fan of like the game, the Dark Souls sort of gameplay.
Right.
And but it's worth it for the story alone. Yeah,
I agree with that completely. So now you mentioned Dark Forces, or Jedi Knight. These have gotten finally, it feels like it's been 2 years that Limited Run Games got the rights to put out physical editions of LucasArts games. And they released some. They were like kind of the worst ones. It didn't really make any sense to me. But now they're finally releasing these Star Wars PC games, and that has started off with Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. Rob, now, what did you grab, and how do you feel about this?
I grabbed both the collector's editions of Dark Forces and Jedi Knight.
Okay.
And I honestly, if we're talking like 90s era Star Wars game, these are near the top, just behind TIE Fighter and X-Wing. So
Wow.
I really had to pick them up, like, and I do already actually have physical copies of these games. So it's not something I even really needed either.
Yeah.
But, it's just, it's one of those things that, I'm going to love having this on my shelf.
Yeah, well, you already have, and you shared this in the Telegram group the other day. I mean, you have a gorgeous collection of big box Star Wars games from the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, they are fucking stunning. And it is, I mean, I took a look at these and they come with so much. I mean, there's artwork that they're coming out, like frameable poster artwork. They got, the coin, the pins,
Right.
I mean, the box looks great. Everything looks good.
And honestly, these collector's editions are the best bang for your buck that they've done on these Lucas Arts re-releases, because you look at some of the past ones for like Bounty Hunter and like we were talking about Episode 1 Racer, they didn't come with a whole lot, and they were at like a $10 higher price point. So
yeah.
You're getting more and you're getting it for less. And these are still available. They haven't sold out yet.
Yeah, which I'm surprised by.
Me too. Yeah.
Because I agree with you that I put the Dark Forces series or the Jedi Knight series, including Jedi Academy, I put that at like number 2 overall, like compared to TIE Fighter, so yeah, I'm just amazed that these didn't really sell out, because the other Star Wars games they put up, like the Game Boy versions and everything, like I thought those sold out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think they played this wrong, and I know they were like they had those special editions and they were really expensive, and they had a bunch of delays in production. It took a long time for them to come out. And I think at this point, just because of the way that Limited Run Games has gone about releasing these LucasArts games, people are just kind of like, disappointed. And I don't blame them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I will definitely, and I've called them out multiple times on Twitter. Like I've, tagged them, like, where's TIE Fighter?
I've done the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such easy money, and I don't care if cause some of the sets they put out, like they're putting out the Command and Conquer remastered, and that's going for like $150. The high end set. I've bought other sets from them in the past. I'd pay $150 for like a really, really fucking amazing, TIE Fighter collection, I mean, hell, I don't even play like the Fantasy Flight games, board games or whatever. But I bought the TIE Defender from that because it's just the only way to get the TIE Defender. If it came with a nice TIE Defender model, I'd be all over that, regardless of price.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know what they're doing there, but yeah, I agree with you. These sets do look great, and I am intrigued to. We'll definitely review them when you get them, Rob. And
now, one caveat, and you brought this up when before we started recording, is that unfortunately, Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight does not include the Mysteries of the Sith expansion pack.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
Yeah, are they going to sell it separate, do you think?
Well, it's not on the list.
Oh,
and I would have assumed if they were going to do it, it would have been included with the Jedi Knight here.
That's a good point.
So
that would have only made sense.
And this makes me concerned for the future. Is well, are they not going to release the expansion packs for X-Wing and TIE Fighter when those come out?
Oh, that'd be, if they do anything less than the CD-ROM collector's editions, like that would be dumb.
It would. It really would.
Unless they're going to try and double dip, like release the original versions and then do the CD version. Oh man,
fuck off.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of this, part of the reason I didn't grab these, just me personally, I love, especially the first game. I love both of them. They're both amazing. Dark Forces, the PlayStation version of that actually has like a little bit of extra content in it. And that's the one that I got really used to playing. And these are the PC versions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's how they were initially released. Like if I recall, it wasn't a simultaneous release. The Dark Forces version that you played didn't come out until well after the PC release.
Yeah, years later.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were just trying, and they did the same thing with Rebel Assault 2. They added in stuff into the PlayStation version. There's times where they'd add, there's times where they take out. But yeah, I mean, but these are gorgeous. So definitely want to pick those up. I definitely recommend them. I think they're just beautiful collections. And like I said, when TIE Fighter drops, I'm definitely there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so at least we finally have some good gaming news to talk about, really good gaming news to talk about on as far as Star Wars goes. But I guess, this is all stuff that really falls under the old EU. So I think we should go ahead and squeeze into our question of the month. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I think it's something. I heard it. There was another podcast that I was listening to, and somebody asked this question. And I was shocked at the response. So are you good to go into the question of the month, Rob?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the question of the month is new canon material, as in comics, novels, etc., as exciting as the old EU material, the old expanded universe material? Of course, that's all the stuff before Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2013. And so where I heard the show that I heard this on, it was, well, I'll say it. It was Rebel Force Radio. And the question got asked to one of the co-hosts, one of the major co-hosts there, do you think people are excited about the new canon material? It was this exact question. And I couldn't believe it that the Jimmy Mack, the co-host, he basically came out and says, oh, no way. He said they're not even remotely as excited as they are about the old EU stuff. And it seemed so honest, because like, that's kind of a dig at what Disney's doing now.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'll say outright, I agree with him. Like, I don't feel anywhere near the excitement that I felt even when I saw bullshit books like the Jedi Academy trilogy.
Yeah, no. In fact, Brian and I, we talk on Telegram, and I was telling him, weeks in advance of us recording this episode, I was kind of dreading sitting down to read the new Star Wars comics because it's been such a shit show of late.
Yeah.
And just, like I was already feeling, burnt out, and
right,
franchise fatigue, and I just didn't want to add to that. I mean, thankfully, we had two, really good comic series this month.
Yeah,
and so thankfully, I'm, like we had that, and I'm feeling a little better. But like I don't want to feel that way about Star Wars, where I'm dreading the release of new products.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so weird because like I remember even as late as like 2012 and they were doing those Swarm books and everything. And I just remember walking to Barnes and Noble. And even though I hadn't read those books yet at that time, I hadn't gotten into that series. And I would see it, and I'd see Leia on the cover and everything. And I would just I would kind of give this little, it's like the nod that Alfred gives Batman at the end of Dark Knight Returns, or the Dark Knight, not Dark Knight Returns, where he's just like happy that he's alive or something like that. And it's just like this pure joy in his face. That's how I felt. It's like, good. I'm glad those books are on the shelf. God damn it. And now, a new Star Wars book, I see it on the shelf. I don't even care. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What did they do now? That's how I feel about it.
Like, what was that last book that we reviewed before Rise of Skywalker?
Not Force
Resistance
Collector.
Reborn.
Yeah, that
was God.
Meaningless.
What a turd.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not to say that there weren't some awful turds in the EU. No doubt about it. Absolutely. I mean, the Crystal Star, enough said.
Yeah. Sorry, Von.
But at least, even the turds were engaging to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Whereas I would rather have something to be an epic failure than just to be, bland and banal.
Yeah, I mean, at least, because I agree with you, there were some turds in the old EU, but at least they were trying some really wild shit.
That's what I'm saying. If they did something totally out there and crazy, like, I mean, I'll be upfront. I don't like the Yuuzhan Vong. I have no interest in the New Jedi Order series. But you know what? It was exciting
Yeah,
for people.
yeah.
You know,
It was a big deal.
it was something new. To me, it wasn't really, something that should be in Star Wars, but, apparently it worked for a lot of people that really enjoyed that series, and I'll give it to them. It's certainly a lot more engaging than the shit they're putting out now. In fact, I'm almost wondering if I should give it a second chance.
Yeah, I mean, I like the series overall, and certainly you get a much better story arc with the children of Leia and Han Solo, in my opinion. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
the excitement's just not there.
Yeah.
It's where again, there was even just a comfort seeing a new Star Wars book on the shelves at the time. And this is well when we were getting, the prequel movies and everything. It's not like there weren't movies in theaters. It wasn't that. It just, I don't know. It felt good. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to even say, I mean, like, I'll even give them credit, I didn't read the New Jedi Order series, but I did get to read, the aftermath of that in the Legacy comics.
Yeah.
And, what they had of the Yuzong Vong and those, comics was not bad. It was pretty good. Like, that it worked for me. It didn't detract from those stories at all.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great one, Star Wars Legacy, which all takes place, 100 years, 150 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. And you're dealing with your main character is Cade Skywalker, who is, down the family line. Now that's a Skywalker story, goddammit. And
Right.
That's like a conclusion to the Skywalker saga. That's a saga. It was awesome. The ideas they came up with for that, the Imperial Jedi Knights, they're like all these really, really cool ideas. It doesn't even come close to living up to the scale, size, and breadth of what they were, and excitement, and even just cool factor of what they were doing in the old EU doesn't even come close. And I don't see anybody, like, I remember back then when that was the running thing, there was plenty of people I could talk to about what was happening in the EU, and now it's a challenge to find anybody that, frankly, that's even read Lost Stars. As good as that is. Go ahead.
And I was shocked. I think it was either this month or the month before, CBR.com,
Yep.
which generally toes the line for Lucasfilm and Disney. They came out with an article talking about how, people who were disappointed in the sequel trilogy should go check out the Star Wars Legacy comic, because, it's actually a really good continuation of the story from Return of the Jedi. And I agree 100%. And honestly, I was shocked to see this article show up in one of, these mainstream genre websites.
Yeah. And something so high profile that's usually a sycophant. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I think I caught that too. I mean, I can remember to this day, and however long ago Star Wars Legacy came out, it's got to be over 15 years ago.
2006.
Okay, so almost 15 years ago, where Cade Skywalker says, "We take what is given." Like, I'll never forget that line. I love that. It was like a badass thing too. Like, it was kind of their new Jedi mantra. And I don't know many stories. I mean, like, it really takes the greatest of stories for quotes like that to stick in my head for so long.
Yeah.
Again,
and they weren't afraid to acknowledge the prequel movies in that series either.
Yeah.
Because you had even characters who were in the prequel comics show up in this series.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this speaks again to kind of to the point that I was making earlier. All Disney had to do, you already had stories. You already had all this shit written.
Yeah.
Just make it.
And
go ahead.
And the gall of, and this is one time I will fucking, absolutely lambaste Kathleen Kennedy, because apparently she said, well, we didn't have any source material for when we were writing these movies. Bullshit.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then now they're talking about, well, maybe it's just too hard to make trilogies.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't it?
The Black Fleet Crisis was good. Obviously, the Thrawn trilogy was amazing. Dark Empire was a whole trilogy. You could rock that. You had Crimson Empire, which was some of the most badass shit. I mean, give me that. Get out of here. I'm going to say something really nasty, so I got to stop.
Yeah,
because
but I don't think she knows about it.
or worse, she just doesn't care.
Yeah,
and that's. But I mean, see that plays more into my theory that like I think they would have had to have like paid. I mean, they brought in Timothy Zahn. They knew what they needed to do there. But I think they would have had to pay a lot of authors.
It happened because of Filoni.
You think Zahn only happened because of Filoni?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I could hear that.
He's the primary source of trying to basically sneak in all this old EU material.
Yeah.
He's the one who's been behind pretty much most of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was even going to introduce the Yuzon Vong in the Clone Wars. That was a plan they had for down the road before they canceled the show.
Yeah, like why?
And Revan.
Yeah, I know about. And Mark Hamill was going to voice him, right?
And now they're talking about bringing Revan back because he got mentioned in the visual dictionary, so he's technically canon again.
Oh, right, because one of the Sith Trooper platoons is named after Revan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man. See, they do pull. It's like it feels like there's some kind of limit that they don't want to cross, or some threshold they don't want to cross, and that's where for me I'll stop talking about this, but I mean that's where for me I feel like that if they use such and so much of a character, or they mention a character created by somebody else, that they have to pay out somehow, and they just don't want to do it. Yeah. Because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. But
yeah, I think it's probably. I mean, like the thing is like it's obvious that whoever it is, be it Kennedy or Iger, they don't have confidence in the people and in the franchise itself, because they keep firing directors and they keep doing the shit they were talking about. And I think they're both interrelated. Okay, I think the fact that they're afraid to do this kind of stuff, and they're afraid to let the directors loose and do what they want, is, I think it's all coming from one source.
You know what I kind of wonder. This speaks to what we were saying earlier, and I know we need to wrap up, but like, what if they're not releasing Mysteries of because Mysteries of the Sith, which is the expansion pack for Jedi Knight that has Mara Jade in it, and that's what wasn't included in limited run games set, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, but GOG sells Mysteries of the Sith, right? Like
right.
That's okay.
Right.
So, because
I think they had that deal in place before Lucasfilm took over. I mean, before Disney took over.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I think because it takes a while for GOG to prepare those games for re-release and get them working on modern systems and whatnot and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I can't fathom why Disney has not done anything with Mara Jade, and now they've basically ruined all their opportunities to make it like serious. I mean, everybody wanted that character to come to life. She's half the reason I think Mysteries of the Sith even got made,
including Mark Hamill, who during the filming of The Last Jedi was basically imagining that the Luke Skywalker that he was playing that movie was a different character, and that his Luke Skywalker, ended up going off and getting married and having a happy life.
Right, and probably with Mara Jade, not with the character.
Right. I mean, I don't expect Mark Hamill to know who Mara Jade is, but yeah,
he would. I think he would, but I hear you. I know what you mean. Yeah. Regardless, that's maybe to date Disney's biggest fail is not bringing Mara Jade to life as a character. Because
that and closing LucasArts.
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah, that and working with EA, even though I guess EA had the deal even before they were in. But regardless, So I guess I think we're both in agreement. No, people are not even remotely as excited about the comics and novels as they were for the old EU, and that should say something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I'll buy anything you're selling. Like, as far as like,
I feel like the Star Wars fandom at this point is pretty much at a point of I'll believe it when I see it.
yeah, 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 which is a great way to engage Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
And not just Hollywood, but also the gaming industry too. Like no more of this pre-order. I know you pre-ordered stuff, but you pre-ordered something that was already proven,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's different.
Yeah, exactly. But no more of this pre-order shit.
Like I didn't pre-order Jedi Fallen Order.
Right.
In fact, I got that for a steal because I only paid for a month's subscription of Origin Access and for $15 and ended up playing the entire $60 game.
Didn't even buy the game.
Nope.
No, yeah. So that's what I mean. Like enough of this. Like, oh yeah. No, please buy with us. And no. You show me that it's good first, then I'll give you my money. And that's a great message, actually. I think to end this show with. You make them show you the goods first. That's like, I've operated that way in the past. I've designed games and everything. Never did a Kickstarter for anything. I'll release it to you. You want it, you get it. And that there you go. So anyway, let's, unless you got anything else, Rob, I think we can wrap this one up.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
A good
so
note to end it on.
Yeah, absolutely. So fuck Star Wars and no,
maybe a little
bit, just aside. And so you went over my helmet. No. Yeah. So anyway, we'll wrap this one up and, we'll be back with TIE Fighter Renegades very soon. And, we will see all of you on the other side.